Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It is a Thursday. We have football tonight, folks. We also have Brent Beaird, our college football analyst, and we'll have Mike Ridaught from the Prep Zone Main Street Daily News talking about high school sports as well. NFL game tonight will be a good one. Dolphins host the Buffalo Bills. That's always a good ball game. Buffalo will bring a lot of folks down to Miami. And we got some college games as well. Let's head to the Titan Memorial Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. And as I mentioned, it's our Heisman Trophy voter. Curious who he has at the top of his list. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Good morning. It is unbelievable that we're going to week 3, but it's certainly been interesting so far. I wish we had a little better slate tonight than we do. Arizona State at Texas State. Tomorrow is UNLV at Kansas, and then Arizona at Kansas State. And the reason I bring that up is Arizona-Kansas State is one of only 2 games with ranked teams, and the other one is Boston College and Missouri. So a rare Saturday, Shane, when we only have 2 games that both teams are ranked.
Yeah, it just seems like, and maybe I don't have it in front of me, but even the games that supposedly have supposed to have all this anticipation, highly, ranked teams, they've been kind of duds. So maybe it's still college football. I think it'll be exciting this weekend. Brent, the AP Top 25 obviously has been coming out, but something happened this week that has never happened in college football.
Yeah, you think that this would have happened before, but the SEC had 6 of the top 7 spots. That is never occurred before. So Georgia, Texas, now Ohio State's 3rd, Bama, Ole Miss, and Missouri and Tennessee are in there. Now look, these will take care of themselves as the season goes along. Teams win, they lose, they fall, they rise. But that's something we have never seen. But it certainly is a indication of the strength of the conference. And already people are talking about how many of those teams will be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. You got a list here of the hottest QB seats in America. I agree with most of it, but there's one that I have no idea why it's even on the list, quite honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, you've got Peyton Thorne, that's obvious. Connor Weigman of A&M, and again, it's just too early for that, in my opinion. And this is not my list, but that's what we've got. Brock Vandagriff. Awful game last week. He could redeem himself this week. Davis Warren at Michigan, I understand that. And then they've got Graham Mertz at Florida, which, I mean, he's hurt when he was in. Look, Graham Mertz is still a good quarterback, so that's one they could have left off.
Yeah, because Peyton Thorne's done absolutely nothing since he's gone to Auburn. Connor Weigman struggles. You get Brock Vandagriff, highly recruited, probably going to be benched by Kentucky. Davis Warren, I don't even know if he walked in my house who he is. I know he's at Michigan. But Graham played very well last year. There's nobody that can say he didn't. So
that's right.
Anyway, Mark on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says Bama sure didn't play like a top 10 team last week. Well, that's true. But if you go back over history, not every team plays like a top 10 team week in and week out. Even when the Gators won national titles, they struggled a a lot of weeks, especially Urban's teams. A couple of his teams, the 06 team, barely got by a majority of the games. And so, you know, I wouldn't worry about it. Win and move on. What's interesting for week 3, though, Brent, it's almost like Thanksgiving weekend. You got all the rivalry games this week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You've got the Apple Cup with Washington and Washington State, the backyard brawl with Pitt and West Virginia. This is one you don't hear a lot of. The Battle of Brothers is Utah State and Utah. Civil War we know about, Oregon State and Oregon. Rocky Mountain Showdowns, Colorado State and Colorado. So I won't go into all of them. There's a pretty extensive list, but Shane's right. It's for some reason week 3 became rivalry week almost, didn't it, Shane?
Yeah, it's crazy. Some stats out there for offensive folks. Obviously, you got to convert on third downs and move the chains and keep your drives going. Tell us who some are the best on third downs and who are the worst.
Yeah, Arkansas is best, and with Bobby Petrino, that's quite a change over last year. Ole Miss, no surprise, 61%. Arkansas, 71% as far as third down conversion, which frankly is unheard of. Ole Miss is close to that at 65. Missouri, 61. Syracuse is 59. Syracuse has Fran Brown, who was at Georgia, and they've done a good job. They beat Georgia Tech last week. Miami is 59%. The worst team on third down conversions, and again, it's really early, is Oklahoma at 19%. Houston is 20%. What about Notre Dame, Shane, at 24%? And then you've got Virginia and West Virginia around 26%. So, and there are 5 teams that have not thrown a touchdown pass yet. Air Force, Miami of Ohio, Northwestern, Western Michigan, and again, Notre Dame. So struggling offensively are the Irish.
That is very true. Kanye Ron on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, on your QB list, what about DJU at FSU? Yeah, he should be the top one on that list for sure. Andy's question on Facebook Live, Brent, how does NIU beat Notre Dame and are ranked 25th while the Irish are ranked 18th?
Well, the reality is the voters, coaches, and the AP writers, the big thing is at least NIU is up there in the top 25. They can celebrate that, but when these guys are doing the voting, they'll move a team down that lost, but they may not move them down below the team that just beat them. So I have no real explanation for that, except that we've seen that for years in the polls. And look, that's something we'll see throughout the season, that head to head in some voters' minds, for whatever reason, Shane, does not mean that much, or maybe not mean as much as it should.
Yeah. A couple of texts here on the Titan and Mark text line. Mike from Tennessee says, I'm wondering if Lane would be interested in the Florida job, or if he would be trolling UF since his ex-wife and his ex-father-in-law, John Reeves, are graduates of Florida. Lane has always wanted the Florida job. I have very close people to him. He was not very happy, from what I was told, when he wasn't even considered when we hired Billy. So we'll see. I do know this. I talked to a couple of my buddies, because this has been all over the internet, right, Brent? I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I had a couple of my buddies from Ole Miss that are somewhat large donors, former players there. They're like, y'all are going to have to come up with a lot of money if y'all want Lane Kiffin, because I say this all the time on my show, and people do not believe me. The money at Ole Miss is crazy, especially their collective. The Grove Collective has a ton of money.
Yes.
So, but yeah. All right. One more text here. There's a bunch of them. I got to find the one. Oh, here it is right here. This is from 941. He says, QB, what's the plan with no Trey Wilson this week? How is it we are down to our third string corner opposite of Jason Marshall? Injuries, I guess. Trey Wilson is questionable, which means he's going to play. unless there's something that came out that I'm not aware of. But he will be playing as far as I know. Brent, throwing the football is crucial in today's college football, and there's some teams that have yet to throw a touchdown pass, and one of them just blows my mind.
Yeah. And again, it's early with this. Air Force, which is no surprise, Miami of Ohio, Northwestern, Western Michigan, and Notre Dame have yet to throw one. Now that'll change, but that is unusual. Even after your first two games, you don't have a touchdown pass.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Leonard, I like him, but Notre Dame's offense is struggling. Big game, Colorado playing Colorado State. This game went into like multiple overtimes, I believe, last year. Boy, it's getting ugly in Colorado with Deion, Brent.
It is. There's no doubt about that. And there are a lot of reasons for it. Their offensive line, again, it looks like is not very good. They've got a lot of injuries that it's probably going to take a while to be able to deal with. That was a big win for Nebraska. And as a matter of fact, Chador Sanders was sacked 5 times. They couldn't run the ball. They only scored 10 points. So it was a miserable afternoon for them. They barely beat North Dakota State. And they desperately really need to win this game this weekend. You're right. It was last week was or last year when that game was a track meet. So I don't know if we'll have that this year because can Colorado score with Colorado State the way they had? You know, people forget too, Shane, it wasn't that long ago when Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator for Georgia, was the head coach of Colorado State. So sometimes we forget those things.
Yeah, and you know, I've watched Colorado, and they're not a very good football team. I think Shadur's a pretty good player, but I put a lot of this on their coaches because their line is not great.
No,
but it's not like they don't even attempt to help their linemen. Is my point.
Yeah,
they continue to line up and drop straight back 5-man protection. They don't try to help them. They don't try to establish a run game. I think it's only a matter of time till he's gone. We're getting a bunch of texts about Lane saying Lane's not coming to UF. Time to move on for that. Cliff, be careful what you say there. All right. So, Brent, let's move around the SEC. But first, before we do that, Electronics World, integration and design specialist for smart home automation and entertainment, affordable local installation service and support, electronicsworld.net. Somebody says on here they think Lane's buyout is, Joseph says $37 million. I don't know if it is that high or not. I think there's some deal with the state of Mississippi contracts.
Yeah.
I could be wrong here, but somebody told me that his buyout's only like $5 million. I don't know. Do you know that, Brent?
Yeah. I'll check on that. But the issue also with contracts in the state of Mississippi, and you probably know more about this, is that it's a limited amount of years. They've just got some kind of a state law, for lack of a better word, that limits the number of years on it. So that's another issue with that. But yeah, we'll look that up. I mean, Lane gets about $8 or $9 million a year. I mean, that's what he's got. And look, let me invite people to go back and read. It was just a few days ago. Chris Lowe had a really good article on Lane at Ole Miss and his being happier there than he has been anywhere else because his family now is with him. His dad just died. There are just a lot of things, and it's look. I get I mean, I've heard the same thing you have with this, but it would be good for people to read that article and get some insight on what's going on there.
Yeah, multiple people are now chiming in about his buyout's $4 million. I thought it was like 4 or 5. It's not very high. So anyway, I do think regardless of what happens, not just the Gators, but anywhere around America, I think Lane will end up being the highest paid coach when it's all said and done at the end of the year.
Agree.
because Auburn's people ain't real happy at Auburn right now.
No, they're not.
So, Brent, let's start with Alabama. Interesting game. They're going to Madison, Wisconsin. They got the Badgers. It's an 11 o'clock start there against Wisconsin. Your thoughts? I know they struggled. I didn't get to see the game. It was very close until at the very end, Alabama put 3 touchdowns on the board. Were you surprised at how that game unfolded?
Well, yes and no. They've struggled for some reason. Their second game of the year for the last few years, even when Nick Saban was there. I mean, I give USF credit. I mean, they played well. The big difference in this game was how the Alabama offensive line struggled to get anything going in the running game, and also struggled to protect Jalen Milroe. They were able to improve toward the end of the game, which made a difference when Elijah Pritchett came in the game. And number 75 is a young he's a young player, and they took him out. Pritchard came in and they scored in 3 straight possessions. So that's something that what they do with the offensive line and be able to protect Milroe at Wisconsin is going to be very important. They've still got some real weapons. Ryan Williams and wide receiver is scoring a touchdown or 2 every game. Wisconsin's a pretty good team. They've got a good offensive line. That's their strength. And people may have forgot this, but Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami former quarterback, is the Wisconsin quarterback. He's completed 60% of his passes. They're 2-0 after wins over Western Michigan and South Dakota. And Luke Fickell's a really good coach. Bama's got the better roster in this game, and they should be able to win this game. But when you're on the road and it's a Big Ten, you never quite know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Michael says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Shane, your comments yesterday about Lane's interest in UF got a lot of traction on High Top Sports last night. Well, I read a text from I think Josh in Mississippi, who has a friend's kid who's being recruited by Lane, and of course then it sounded like I was saying everything that this tweet or this text said. Look, Lane Kiffin is a damn good football coach. Billy's our coach right now. If something were to happen, to think Lane would not be interested in the Florida job, people are clueless. I mean, would you not agree with that, Brent?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, Florida struggled, but in the minds of coaches know the potential Florida has had for years and the potential they've got in the future. That there's absolutely no question that coaches want to come to Florida.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen, but anybody that doesn't think Lane Kiffin would be interested in Florida is living under a rock. Okay. Now that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, he's very happy at Ole Miss. We know that. And the people love him at Ole Miss, and he gets whatever he wants at Ole Miss, and he's done a phenomenal job there. Mm-hmm. So we'll just see how it all plays out. Brent, Arkansas, gosh, I didn't get to see any of this game. I kept seeing the score pop up on my phone. They blew a chance to win a really big game against Oklahoma State.
Should have won the game, lost it, and unfortunately in overtime, now their running back, Jaquindon Jackson, was really tremendous in that game. He really outran Ollie Gordon, who a lot of people love Ollie Gordon, but Arkansas's defense did a really good job in holding him down. Jackson ran for almost 150 yards, which was quite impressive. Arkansas's got UAB coming up. That's a game they should win, frankly. UAB lost Alcorn State. Oh, I'm sorry. That they beat Alcorn State. But in the last game, they only scored 6 points and lost to Louisiana Monroe. So Arkansas is better, certainly offensively. Their problem was in the second overtime, they had a ridiculous personal foul on one of their defenders that virtually picked up the Oklahoma State wide receiver and just slammed him to the ground. So these foolish penalties at the worst time have hurt a lot of teams. So Hogs are playing better. They should win, which is a feather in their cap so far.
Yeah, Tom says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel, Shane Kerwin-Bell for offensive coordinator now, someone who knows the passing game. What do you think? Kerwin's one of my best friends. I talk to him once a week. If you listen to this program, Kerwin will only be the head coach. He tried the offensive coordinator deal with Charlie Strong. It was a disaster. He's in charge of his program at Western Carolina, and he will be there unless he gets another head job somewhere else. All right, Brent, Auburn Tigers, what a mess on the Plains, man.
Yes. Yeah, Peyton Thorne really struggled against Cal. Cal really should have beat Auburn last year at Cal. They did at Auburn. 4 interceptions by Peyton Thorne. The big question for them is, like a lot of teams, and FSU may have this same dilemma, is at some point, do you go to another quarterback? So they've got Hank Brown, they've got Holden Grenier. Might they make a change? Certainly you would think that Peyton Thorne would improve and get a little bit better. I think the amazing thing is that during that game, they went 20 minutes of game time without getting a first down. Now here's something there's two quick stats here that are incredible. One is since Hugh Freeze has come to Auburn, the Auburn quarterbacks, the touchdown to interception ratio is 15 to 15. Now that, as a quarterback, you can appreciate that. The other, this stat really sums up Auburn in a nutshell right here, is Auburn last Sunday only had 21 players on current NFL rosters. Bama's got 61, Georgia has 45, and LSU has 39. So that gives you a little bit of indication. They play New Mexico this weekend. They should be able to do that. But Auburn's lost 3 of its last 4 when they were a favorite, and the underdog has won 4 of Auburn's last 6 games.
Unbelievable. Text on the Titan Mark text line from 941 says, ask Brent if he thinks FSU will lose to Memphis, and if they do, how hot will the coaching seat get at 0-3?
Well, number one, I do think they very well may lose to Memphis. Now, Mike Norvell is not going anywhere. Remember, he just got the raise and extension after a great year last year. That there are multiple reasons why they aren't playing well, and their transfers really came to fruition last year. This year, unfortunately, they have not yet. Doesn't mean they won't at this point. But this is a really big game. The Hennigan kid at quarterback for Memphis, I mean, he's thrown for 11,000 yards in his career. So my concern for Florida State is, Shane, if they get you can't chase points with Memphis. If you get behind like 14-0, it could be a really long day. And the other thing is, what is Florida State's mental aspect of this game? Are they ready to play? Hopefully they haven't given up on the season. I don't think that's the case. But it's going to be a very difficult and very important game for Florida State.
Yeah, Iceman says, Shane loves bringing up that practice crap about DJ when all summer we've heard that the team was looking great in practice to see what they looks like now. Iceman, you obviously don't listen to everything I say. The team looked good. DJ looked good at times, but looked worse at times. And that's why I said I didn't think he would play this year. And maybe he's a better game player than practice player. So quit listening to what you want to hear and listen to what I'm saying. And yes, we have not performed well as a team, but our practice, you can't learn anything from practice. That's what's always blown my mind. I have been playing football since I was 5 years old till 36. That's a long time. And I've watched multiple practices. I have never gone to a practice and said, man, that team looks like a national championship team, because you don't know until they play another opponent. So take that for what it's worth. All right, Brent, Gators, Aggies have trouble winning on the road in the conference, and it's been a long time since they had a road win. This is a huge game for both programs. it's way more important for the Gators because this is Mike Elko's year one.
Yeah.
We're at home, and we know the schedule. Just your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a. I don't want to be dramatic and say it's a season-defining game, but it may be close to that for these teams. Connor Weigman, the A&M quarterback, has looked sharp at times, and other times they have not. They beat McNeese State, so we understand that. Only had 63 plays in the game. For some reason, there are a lot less plays this year that I've seen. A&M is struggling to run the football, and they did better last week. But something that Florida's got to do, they've got to be able to block Nick Scorton, the transfer from Purdue, and Shamir Turner on that defensive line. This is a really amazing stat for A&M's history. Is they have lost 10 consecutive road games. That goes back to 2021. That's unusual. And all these road losses have been to SEC teams, except the loss to Miami. LeVon Moss has kind of been the leading rusher for A&M. Obviously, they lost to Notre Dame. As we mentioned, they won last week. Mike Elko is in his first year. He's a good coach, and they probably really should have beat Notre Dame. But this is a game Florida can certainly win. They've had an interesting history with A&M over the last few years. But if they can block that defensive line, they're going to have a real shot at winning this game.
Yeah, the Dogs, number one team in America, rolls into Lexington. Huge favorite. I was shocked at South Carolina beating Kentucky because I watched a lot of the South Carolina game against Old Dominion. And I'd heard all this stuff about Kentucky, how they're going to play fast with Brock Vandergriff. I didn't see any of the game. Obviously, they stunk and South Carolina whipped their butts. I don't know how they even have a chance against Georgia. Now, every week is different, but what I mean, I didn't see any of the game, Brent. How bad was Kentucky?
Bad. And again, it goes back to their offensive line. They could not do anything with the South Carolina front seven. Vandergriff ran for his life. I mean, he was 3 of 10 for 30 yards, and that was it. So you would think they've got to be better. I mean, Brock Vandergriff is a Georgia transfer. Jamon Dumas-Johnson is also a Georgia transfer. One of the Kentucky linebackers. I mean, South Carolina had 11 tackles for loss. So it was just a very, very difficult game. Now, Berrien Brown, the wide receiver, is a real weapon. So Georgia will have to be careful with him. But Georgia is just kind of, I'm not saying they're bored, but they're just winning in typical Georgia fashion. That they've been dominant all across the board. Carson Beck has been very good. They're kind of fine-tuning the running attack. The offensive line's very good. Defense with guys like KJ Bolden have been impressive too. So I'm with you. I don't think there's any way that Kentucky will win the game. Hopefully they will play better, but they were manhandled last week against South Carolina.
Yeah, LSU's traveling to Columbia. Game day is going to be at this game. I don't know how South Carolina can beat LSU. Their offense is just putrid. They cannot throw the football at all. Now, they may win because they're at home, but I just think LSU has too many athletes for Carolina.
I agree. LSU has a better roster. Lenore Sellers, the South Carolina quarterback, has been good and bad. Frankly, he's more of a runner than he is a passer, so he's going to have to improve. Rocket Sanders has had 142 yards in 2 games. He would really need to go over 100 yards for them to be able to win. Now, what has been really impressive, South Carolina's got a really good defense. Dylan Stewart, who is a freshman, has been one of the really impressive guys at this point. So Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard versus the LSU offensive line is going to be a good matchup. But to your point, South Carolina only has 280 yards passing. They're 122 in Division I. So Shane, I think even though LSU struggles on defense, this is a game LSU should win. I think Nussmeier will play well, and but to South Carolina's credit, they've got game day there, so that should help their recruiting somewhat.
Yep. I think one very interesting game, as you mentioned, it's two ranked teams. BC going into Missouri. Missouri. I mean, BC can control the football with their run game. How do you see this game playing out?
I think this game will be close. Frankly, it's at Missouri. This is one of the only games between two ranked teams. They could have had game day in Missouri in Boston College, which would be interesting. Missouri's not allowed a single point yet, but they played Murray State and Buffalo, so take that into consideration. Brady Cook is back from Missouri. You've got a situation that Luther Burden is one of the better wide receivers in the entire SEC and the nation. He got sick in the game last week and just didn't come back. I think from the second quarter on, I think he's better. He's not hurt. He just got sick. But they've also got a kid, Theo Weiss, at wide receiver, who is really good also. So to Shane's point, this is going to be a good game. Bill O'Brien, I think, has done a good job. They're just physical. They can run the ball. I mean, O'Brien's never going to be real complicated offensively. They just do what works. And, I mean, they're averaging over 200 yards rushing. If they can run the ball on the Missouri defense, this thing could go deep into the game and be one of the better games to watch.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tennessee and Ole Miss both score over 60 points this week.
Yeah.
It's going to be a track meet. Don't look now, but Vanderbilt has a chance to go 3-0.
They do, and if they do, they ought to have a parade. Frankly, now Vandy. Now get this, Shane. Vandy goes to Georgia State. This is a road game for them, but Diego Pavia has been kind of the star for this team. He's just a gutty little quarterback. He was at New Mexico State with Jerry Kill, and they're both now with Vanderbilt. So, look, I'm with you. That would be that'd be exciting. We haven't seen Vandy at 3-0 very often, have we, Shane? So that will be fun to see.
Yeah, and Georgia State plays in the old Turner Field, Atlanta County Football Stadium.
Yeah.
You know, the old they redesigned that for them to play there. All right, before we get you out of here, Brent, we touched on it briefly, but boy, I'm with you. I just think Memphis is too good of a football team, and Florida State's got so many issues right now. Boy, I think Memphis goes into Tallahassee and wins.
Well, Memphis is really good, and Memphis is looked upon to be the number 12 team, possibly in the playoffs this year. Difficult news for FSU. Jalen Lucas, their running back, also returned kicks. He's out for the year. That's disappointing. Hakeem Williams, the wide receiver, is supposed to be back, so that will help them a lot. But again, Shane, this comes down to DJ Uiagalelei, and that we mentioned this with Peyton Thorne a minute ago, is how much confidence does he have? How much confidence do the coaches have in him? And he just, I don't know if they would make a move in the middle of a game necessarily and put Brock Glenn in, who is the backup. But if Uiagalelei does not do anything to help them this week, that's going to be a difficult decision for the coaches after this game.
Yeah, no question about it, because they're paying him a lot of money.
They are.
So it'll be interesting to see if they put him on the bench. Brent, good stuff as always, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Good. We'll look forward to hearing Mike Ridaught, who's one of the best. And Shane, have a great week and enjoy some ball this weekend.
Yes, sir. That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to turn to the youngsters. A little volleyball, a little football, high school edition. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, Titan MRI, Meldon Law, Peachland Dental, QC Kinetics, Campus USA Credit Union, Dave & Buster's. Gridiron sponsors, Comfort Temp, UF Bookstores, Quality Plumbing, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogra State Farm, Electronics World, F45. Our touchdown sponsors, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Miapa Latin Cafe, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, MG&A Wealth, Nest and Wild.
If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe. With 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua, you're never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. We're going to go back to the Titan MR Hotline courtesy of Comfort Temp. And it's Mike Ridaught. He does a tremendous job covering high school sports for the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, Shane. How about you today?
Not too bad. Just plugging away. Obviously, I love to get you on, a couple times a month to talk about the high school kids because I think that's important to give them a little bit of love. Let's start with volleyball.
Okay.
We're probably midway point in volleyball season.
Pretty close, yeah, because, once we roll into the month of October, you got postseason coming up in October. So in some instances, maybe even be a little over halfway done with the season. So, yeah, it's flying by.
All right, so tell us who has caught your eye with high school volleyball in the area.
Well, I've seen Santa Fe now a couple of times. I would have to say that they're, as far as teams in Alachua County, I'd put them up there number 1. I'd put, even though they're not an FHSA school, I'd put the Rock number 2. But, Santa Fe has Gia McGrew, who is a University of Iowa commit. Grayson Marshall, their setter, is a West Florida commit. And I spoke to Eric Marshall about this team. They've got other players like Brooke Finley, who's only a junior, but been playing well this year. It's a team that has a chance to get to the Final Four in their classification. Gainesville High School is a team I'll get a chance to see this coming Monday when they play against Buchholz. The Hurricanes, actually, they played a tough in a tournament of champions at Celebration Point at the end of August and lost to some good competition. Bishop Kenny out of Jacksonville, they're always in the mix in their classification. Timber Creek out of Orlando. So it's a team still trying to figure things out after losing 3 Division I players last year, but they're on a little bit of a roll right now. They've won 5 of their last 6, and they'll play a Buchholz team that actually just got beat by the Rock, but had won 3 games in a row prior. Oak Hall was in the Final Four. I got a chance to see them on Tuesday night. Pretty easy win for them, but no surprise there against St. Francis Catholic. But that was a district game, 2A District 1. And then they'll play a PK Young team next Thursday that you look at their record, very misleading. It's a very young team. Chancey Weiss, the former head coach at Gainesville High School, is now the head coach at PK Young. And that's going to be a tough matchup for Oak Hall on the road next Thursday. So things really kind of heating up, as I mentioned, as we roll into the month of October. But that's how I would probably put those teams. Buchholz number 1, the Rock number 2, and then kind of, Oak Hall in the mix right there with Gainesville, Buchholz, and maybe even PK Young, making a little bit of a surge late at the end of the year.
All right, let's switch gears to high school football. Let's start. There's a big one this weekend, or this Friday night. Jaquez Green and the Manatee Hurricanes are rolling up to play Buchholz. Now, they're playing this game at Santa Fe High School. Why?
Okay. The reason is because of the field conditions at Citizens Field.
Good old Alachua County.
Exactly. Yep. Buchholz decided that even though they love playing at Citizens Field, it's their home too. They just felt like a better surface. This was too big of a game to play. Well, not only too big of a game, but just the fact that, and injuries and so forth. Because even last week in their game against Buchholz, I noted I wasn't there for that one. I was down in Ocala for Vanguard and Newberry, but I saw after the game that Mark Whittemore had, said that Citizens is infamous for being pretty muddy and grimy. So you can imagine what that's going to probably be like tomorrow, because we've had some rain. Eastside's playing Trinity Catholic tonight. And then by the time you get that Friday game, because they flip-flop, Gainesville High School is now hosting LeCanto. And then it kind of came down to financial reasons too, Shane. I mean, Buchholz was in a better financial opportunity to pay to play over at Santa Fe High School versus GHS. But field conditions, the reason that Buchholz decided to move that game over to Santa Fe. But yeah, big game tonight, as you mentioned, Quezzy, former Gator legend, Jaquez Green, the head coach of Manatee. It's a program that's ranked top 10 in the state in their classification. They're a 5A school. I think they're ranked 7th in the state. Buchholz, 3-0. Right now, of the teams in the Main Street Daily News coverage area, we cover the Alachua County area, but also in the Bradford and Columbia and the Tri-County area. We're down to 5 undefeated teams. We'll get to Hawthorne in a minute because they're the only team in the area that did lose last week. But Buchholz off to a 3-0 start, ranked 3rd in the state in 6A. Struggled a little bit from an offensive standpoint, but the defense dominated Eastside. That was their 11th straight win, 35-7 last week. It was only a 7-0 game at halftime. Buchholz was up 14-7, I think, late in the third quarter, but then ended up pulling away. Josiah Powell, he's that running back that, after losing Quentin Cutler and, of course, Miles Graham, he's their kind of go-to guy on the ground. But really good connection between the quarterback, Johnson, and Williams. Justin Williams had a couple of touchdowns last week. Trace Johnson, had some options. DJ Hicks is in there too. Kill McGriff was a little banged up. I think he'll be back this week for Buchholz. So we'll see. It's a good test for Buchholz, which is really playing a tough schedule this year.
Yeah, I didn't realize Buchholz was a bigger high school than Manatee. But we have a question here on Facebook Live brought to you by Mental Law from Andy. You want to know what kind of offense Quezzy Green runs and how do they match up against Buchholz? They're very good offensively. Quezzy does a great job. He calls the plays. He's got a good quarterback. He runs a Spurrier offense with a lot of West Coast concepts built in because Quezzy, in his NFL time, played for some West Coast teams, with the Buccaneers being one. So it should be a heck of a game, both highly ranked teams. So if you want to watch a good high school program, head to Alachua and watch Buchholz and Manatee. Let's switch gears to the Purple Hurricanes. Ian Scott, I don't know when the last time GHS was 3-0, but it seems like him and Ernest Graham have the Hurricanes rolling.
Well, I can tell you, the last time that Gainesville High School started 3-0, they ended up going 14-0 before losing to Miami Central in the state championship game. That was back in 2012. So it's been a long time since the Purple Hurricanes are off to a 3-0 start. Who would have believed that? Talking a few games into the season when I mentioned the teams that were still unbeaten in the area, I would have never thought that Gainesville High School would have been one of those teams that's undefeated. But, Ian Scott has changed the culture. Think about that too, Shane. He has tripled their win total over the last 2 years combined. 2 years ago, they were winless. Last year, they won just one game. So what an amazing turnaround for GHS. Gainesville also, got the win last week. Purple Hurricanes were able to beat Leon on the road in Tallahassee. 14-7 was the final score in that one. So to be able to – Leon, I think, maybe a little bit down compared to the Leons we've seen in the past, but still the opportunity to go on the road and get a win was big. Calvin Thomas had a big day, 3 catches, 153 yards, couple of touchdowns, had both their touchdowns in that 14-7 win. So they will play a Lecanto team. In fact, Shane, I was supposed to broadcast that Buell's Manatee game until it got moved. We're going to stick with Citizens Field because this is a district game tomorrow night, for GHS against Lecanto. Lecanto's got a pretty good quarterback that can throw it around a little bit. Really good basketball player too. So looking forward to seeing JT Tipton in this one for Lecanto, which is 2-1 coming in. Gainesville, as we mentioned, 3-0. It's a district game, so a big game at Citizens Field. That game's at 7:00 tomorrow night, and we'll have the game at 6:30 p.m. on 106.9 FM.
Yeah, you get a couple of transfers. You get Ernest in there running the offense. It's like night and day over at GHS. Hawthorne goes up to Tallahassee, loses to Florida High. I know they always have a good program up there, but were you surprised that they lost?
Not necessarily surprised that they lost. Hawthorne came close to losing at home to Newberry. Now, Newberry's a pretty good football team too. And, Newberry, as I mentioned, I saw their game last week against Vanguard, just too many mistakes. They missed some field goals, including one that got blocked in return for a touchdown. So too many mistakes to beat a good Vanguard team. But, the fact that Hawthorne was able to get that win at home in overtime a couple of weeks ago against Newberry was big. But from what I understand on the road, it was a defense that pretty much kind of dominated. Even though you look at the score, it was a high-scoring game. Florida High's defense played pretty well. I know they had a pick six. Hawthorne also had a pick six, so both teams defensively played okay. And Hawthorne was in it. I think there was about 2.5 minutes to play in the game. I think Hawthorne was around their 40-yard line, and then they threw a pick six, and they ended up losing by a couple of scores. So that snapped a 27-game winning streak for Hawthorne. Hornets brought down to earth, if you will, but they've got another tough one coming up this Friday night, Shane, against Oakleaf out of Orange Park. That's a bigger classification school. Oakleaf is a 6A program. Hawthorne's just a rural program. That'll be another tough matchup. We'll see if Hawthorne can bounce back. But I think, and then they've got South Sumter next week. So, they may take some lumps this year, but they are still top 2-3 in that rural classification, along with Madison County, which they've got a big one too, Shane. They've got to go to Lake City, Columbia on Friday.
Oh, wow. Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by. A few more minutes with Mike Ridaught on the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tip. Some of the other teams you mentioned, Newberry went and played Vanguard, a much bigger school, lost that game, but I'm sure, Newberry's got a good program. Union County's got a good program. Bradford, talk about some of those teams. I know Williston's still in the hunt. It's still early, but anybody else jump out to you?
Yeah, and going back to Newberry, they were without their leading receiver, Hayden Moore, who plays defense, plays special teams. So it's almost like losing 2 or 3 starters. He was in concussion protocol, and missed that game. But, yeah, Union County off to a 3-0 start right now. But they play a Baldwin team that's 2-1. Baldwin's only loss was to Palatka. That'll be another tough win for Union County. They rolled last week against Keystone Heights, had a running clock in that one. And then, let's see, Williston did bounce back. They lost their first game of the year against Chiefland, had a week off, and then beat 6A Land O'Lakes last week. So they go to Zephyr Hills Christian Academy this week. But Union County is now one of 5 area teams that are undefeated in our coverage area at Main Street Daily News. Bradford, Shane, big one, at home against Jacksonville Mandarin. Mandarin is loaded with Division I.
Wow.
They're loaded with Division I prospects. Now, the problem for Mandarin is I don't know how long their quarterback is going to be out, the FSU commit, but they still have a bunch of other Division I players on that team. They're undefeated right now. Bradford's undefeated. Should be a heck of a game. Might be, and outside of that Manatee Buchholz game, that Mandarin Bradford might be the game of the week in the area.
Yeah, Joseph brings up a good point. I'm glad he brought this up on the Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon. Prayers out to Port St. Joe High School. Very unfortunate situation for their football team and their community. Have to deal with this. If people missed it, one of their star players, and I think he was a really good football player and a great kid from what I've been told, passed away. I don't know exactly how it happened, or if it was after the game, during the game, or whatever. But a very sad situation. Do you know much about that, Mike?
Yeah, and just to correct myself, I said Union beat Keystone. That was a couple of weeks ago. They beat Santa Fe 45-0 last week. The only thing I know in that situation, the kid was also, I believe, an honor student and actually died at the hospital. But yeah, just obviously you hate to see something like that happen. But man, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, no question about that. Mike, good stuff as always. Let everybody know again, are you broadcasting a game Thursday and Friday?
We will. Our game tonight is Trinity Catholic at Eastside. It will be an audio broadcast. Cam Parker and Joe Baker will call that game. 7 o'clock game, 6:45 pregame. You can listen to it online at mainstreetdailynews.com. And then tomorrow I'll broadcast Lecanto at GHS. That's also a 7 o'clock game. And our coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. on 106.9 FM.
And they can read all your stuff at Main Street Daily News, correct?
Main Street Daily News, yes, sir.
Awesome. Mike, appreciate your time, my friend. Do a tremendous job. We appreciate you joining the program.
All right, thanks for the time, Shane. Have a great day.
Yeah, that's Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News. Join us on the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. A couple people asked, why is Quezzy, being from Georgia, not coaching in Georgia? He's had a couple of opportunities to be an assistant coach, but he's the head coach of a really good program down there in Bradenton, Manatee. Joseph wants to know, Mike, wasn't Ryan Smith the coach at GHS back then in the team that went to play for the state title, gosh, what was his name? Ryan had just left. I think he went to DeLand. He went to DeLand or he went to Taylor County. I can't remember the order. What was it? James Thompson. James Thompson was the head coach of the Purple Hurricanes the year they played for the state title. I was at that game, by the way. They had zero chance. I don't know if I've ever seen a high school team like Miami Central when they came out of the locker room. I was like, whoa. It's Dalvin Cook and another. Dalvin Cook did he go to Miami or State? But so there are two tailbacks for that Miami Central team. One ended up starting at Florida State, the other was starting at Miami. But it was crazy. Yeah, I can't remember who the other kid was. So anyway, again, I want to thank Brent Beaird and Mike for joining the program today. Tomorrow we'll have JC. We're going to have Edgar Thompson on. Good night, my Aggie folks. I guess they don't wake up early because they'd have to join us Central Standard Time pretty early. So we'll get Edgar's thoughts. He's got a lot of good comments and stuff for you guys moving forward. So that'll do it for today, folks. Again, we appreciate you guys chiming in and listening. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.